guess I'm gonna keep running with this one, but as you catch into this, maybe you watch that last video and you're wondering what I'm talking about. I actually got in. I think sometimes the best things about us are the most unappreciated, overlooked, and things that we actually receive blows from other people. So if you followed this content at any point, uh, and you came across some of the discussions I had about like people who went to a lot of training to understand how much an orange can be wrong, and then appreciate most people as being either an orange or a different form of fruit that is actually an orange that thinks itself a different fruit is more so of an orange for thinking itself a different form of fruit, and all that is somehow in this thing, whether it's an orange or not. Maybe it's more so of another form of fruit that is somehow very familiar and interested in oranges and what can be wrong with oranges, and gives people a hard time for being oranges, um, uh, and while ostensibly having taken these efforts and enjoyed these honors and privileges in what's the best, ostensibly the best interest of oranges all along, no less than other fruit that are actually still oranges while thinking themselves fruit, and less of different fruit for not recognizing that they had been an orange, and also deprived of some of the different things they can do as different forms of fruit, but having been segregated and scheduled as being oranges by this expert in oranges. So what kind of got me into that situation and being appreciated as an orange was making statements that were appreciated as either being too. I was talking rapidly, is what they said, and then I was also speaking tangentially, which that's actually not too far a derivative of my name. But all I meant to say is I'll let you be the judge in watching this content of numbers specifically, and then giving that reference. Am I in fact an orange or an apple to your taste? It actually might take, when things are bad enough, heated enough, personal enough, money is on the table. It sometimes takes outside intervention to get to the truth of the matter. That is an outside judge. So the only real judge is someone that doesn't know us, because that's the only judge we can stomach enough to accept their gospel. So I'll let you be the judge. But what I meant to say is that what does that have anything to do with anything? What I'm talking about is that my friend who was distraught when I left, and that experience I had with him running with the U-Haul as I left, like in a U-shaped apartment complex, and then visiting him as visiting looking for him where his mother lived, as in my mid to late 20s, and visiting his mother and seeing his old room where he's still in his mother's life. He's still present and active in his mother's life, and it attends her where she lives, but yet his old room was preserved, even though he's onto cool things and has a family now. His room, his childhood room, had seldom picture in it, save for a picture of me and him from that many decade and a half ago, just to show the type of friendship we had. But when you appreciate stuff like that, you look at that picture, what you would feel like that, what that would mean that I would mean to him, and that what he would have to mean to me to feel like that about me. And we're both, we both we both love men as friends and women as lovers at this point. And then we had that bond, that type of is dynamic when we were boys. In that moment, you would have an appreciation that this person is yet who I am. They're a part of me, but actually because they're actually so much different than me, but actually feel that much a part of me, that we're more so of one another for being very different and being the same, and being the same and being different and being different and being the same. And that's what makes reality come to a standstill, to a moment, and you see what beauty is. You see how beautiful is diversity, how beautiful is uniformity, how how much more is uniform possible because of diversity, and how much more is diversity possible because of uniform. We can be so different because we are so much the same, and we can be so much the same because we're different. And that's what we're talking about when you say one love. So maybe that's the original unit right there. So we said like there's like a unit cipher, 1 0, bindu silence, one love. So maybe love is the least of which, and the greater for being the least of which, and one is the real unit, the real currency, the real money, the real McCoy. And in India, they also say that you always have a you always have and I wanted to point that out as a feature of symmetry, is sameness and difference, and differentness and sameness is profound symmetry, and is pure paradox, pure enlightenment, pure connection, pure challenge, is sameness and otherness and same, heterogeneity and homogeny in heterogeneity. Those two distinctions and that paradox being pointed out from my original understanding, my original experience. My encounter with that was through the works of Arthur Avalon, and I'm saying that's also within the scope of a discussion in mathematics is heterogeneity and homogeneity, and then an example of the times when something knocks us in our tracks, and seeing what kind of love someone has for us or someone else, or that we have for them, or for them having for someone else, and things come to a head for a moment like that. It's in appreciating that sameness in other and otherness in same is where I pointed that out. But with the discussion of that book of pre-algebra for dummies, so it conveys that you have I don't know how much it talks about functions, but it talks about your four operations of mathematics being the operations par excellence, par existence, is division, multiplication being the same operation in inverse fashion, and addition, subtraction being the same operation in inverse fashion. You do long form multiplication, you do long form division, and you do multiple digit addition or subtraction, and you're going to be interplaying with a lot of those same functions right back and forth, and that's actually mathematics, as it were. But the fundamental, more of which would probably just be subtraction and addition and subtraction, and that more so just simply being symmetry. What you put on this side, you get out on this side. What you take away from that side, you get on this side. So the scope of functions, then, like when your sophisticated stuff, I think you might be getting into trigonometry when you're talking about functions. I'm not certain. You would be talking about multiples of 10, and then interrupting and bolstering multiples of 10 as what's like algorithms, and that's again a feature of symmetry. So you base your concept of symmetry on 0 through 1 through 10 as individual units of digits and having value, but also combining those. It's another form of symmetry that goes on to sophisticated ripples. But then within this dynamic, the expression is as important as the actual what is connoted and denoted. So the expression is what can be appreciated of value, and then how you represent, re-represent, stop representing, and then the different ways you can represent value and misrepresent value intentionally. We could say that some of the devilishness of mathematics and how it's so effective and cunning is that you can actually represent value, misrepresent value, re-represent value, misrepresent value to your liking and to your taste if you're sophisticated in the method of expression. And that's how people are getting over on one another with numbers, and having people believe in the numbers, because there yet is some value present that would have to be present enough to engage with and believe in it, but it's yet manipulated. It can be manipulated over the expression. So you have different banking instruments. You have different business contracts, and by manipulating the expressions and the outputs and the value, you can do different things with value that skew the appreciation and understanding of the real value, the real McCoy, the real four operations as they exist, the real single operation as exists, the symmetry or lack thereof, or asymmetry, and then your different ways of expressing that is very potent and powerful, and it actually can amount to the different fancy things that we can do with technology, or have yet to be discovered with technology, is a form of value, symmetry, and then expression would be mathematics. And then but you can actually appreciate a lot of that simply by reading the book Pre-Algebra for Dummies by the brilliant, I'm now calling him brilliant, Mark Zarelli, because that's the taste that's left in my mouth reading that book over a decade ago, and his humor in there. And so when you can be funny about something, you have to be familiar with something to be fun. I think there's a certain amount of pre-thought that goes into what would allow you to improvise and be humorous, and he does that in some of that book. That older iteration of Algebra for Dummies around 14-15, and then the year 14-15 when that came out, 2014-15. But then some of the scope, but then talking about what it is to exist and not exist, that is actually a function of higher order mathematics. So when I had the first video of this series, when I was talking about could